I might fix it later. Girl. Oh, wow. Ooh. Oh, this is so cute. Hey, I don't want nothing on the day. I call this Sunday chat. It's just like I don't want nothing and I don't know what I'm doing and it's Sunday. I probably should have put the date on here because I like knowing the dates. I follow the dates, especially when I go back and I look for stuff because sometimes I'll remember. I'll be like, oh, wait, I talked about this on that day. Y'all can probably hear the fan. I'll turn it down a little bit. I was recording that video earlier and I was like, oh, I think I hear the fan. But I am not about to roast Queen of Wands. I'll just keep going and see what comes out. And I don't even know what I want to chat about today. It's just that, like, I feel like this Venus retrograde has been hitting me like hardcore. It hasn't been hardcore, but I'm starting to just like feel it. And I indulged in a little bit of nostalgia today. And I'm just like, wow, oh my gosh. And that's kind of sort of all I wanted to say. I don't really want to talk about it anymore. And I don't quite know what I'm doing, but I guess I'm on this thing, ain't I? I'll put this back. I want to do 3 and 3 for whatever reason. And I don't necessarily, like I said, want it too much. And like, I feel like my heart space has just been like, just like wide open. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so much feeling. And I just like feel it sometimes and I try to ground it. Or I'll go outside. Or I'll be outside when I start to feel it. But I don't know. There's this thing about like, I guess since what was that? Since I'm less affected by some other people, it's like I sit on the porch sometimes and it's like the world isn't even in the state that it's in. Like there's definitely like less traffic and less people out, but at the same time, it's kind of sort of like in those moments, it's almost like nothing has changed. I'm feeling it there. Oh, I've been seeing the Two of Wands so much, and it came out earlier today. Two of Wands, the Hermit, and the Ace of Pentacles. Okay, I'm actually gonna do like. Am I doing the thing that I did earlier today? Maybe not. I've just been wanting to use this Pride Tarot deck so much because I love it. But yeah, my heart has just been like, oh, the dreams. I got nostalgic today. I'm like thinking back on the past, but at the same time, it's so interesting that at first, oh, there we go. The Six of Wands and the Magician just came out. Okay, love that energy. I'm gonna sit these here, I guess. And that's gonna bring me into whatever this is. So I'll just go ahead and pull these now. So first is the Lovers, because of course it's the Lovers. Why wouldn't it be? Right? And then from the middle, it's what is that? Ace of Wands. So the second ace. What was this? Because that's the Two of Wands. Oh, the Hermit. So we have another ace and another major. And then at the bottom is the Hangman. Ace of Wands. No, it was the Lovers, the Ace of Wands, and the Hangman. So what am I talking about? At first, when all of this started like going down, or no, even no, how do I talk about this? I guess I'm gonna do like vloggy-ish style things. And I kind of sort of did them before, but that's what this will be. That's why I called it Sunday Chat. Right? Oh, 2 more cards. Yes. Another 6. The Two of Pentacles and the Six of Wands. It was the Magician and the Six of Swords before. Two of Pentacles and the Six of Wands. And this will lead me into the next three. So I'm gonna give this two more, and then I'm gonna pull those three. Um, it's kind of weird because like the first card out is the messenger, so we have another major. Let's see if we get another ace. Second card out will be, what is this? The Ace of Cups. I did get another ace. Majors and aces connected by sixes and majors slash a two. And then at the bottom of the deck is the Nine of Wands. Okay. I don't know what this is, but it's a shape. Um, see, I need more space. I can't wait to like get a place where I have more space, where I can make a space dedicated towards this, so I can do like larger style reads, like the Jupiters that I did on my Legacy channel. Okay, I think I'm done. But I can't imagine being in this time in a different space, right? I can't imagine what my experience would have been like if the things that happened in early March didn't happen in early March. Like, and I've tried to think about it, especially like earlier when I was like, I don't like being in this space and not being able to like talk to certain people because like there's so much like happening in the world right now. But now that I think about it, it's just that like I don't know what this would have been if that didn't happen. And it's not that, I mean, I guess I'm saying I found an appreciation for it and a sort of like mysticism because how do I say this? Because of the growth that was necessary, because this has been a growing experience for me, I can't imagine, excuse me, kind of sort of being in this space without the growth that was encouraged by those situations, if that makes sense. And this space being like this time. Like I can't imagine going through all of the things that I would have gone through if I didn't take a bit of a step back. Because like literally that's like the space that I had reached like right before everything kind of sort of fell apart. I was like, I've been giving to a lot of people and it's time for me to like take a step back and to focus on myself a little bit because something is happening with me or within me or whatever. And I can't really process it the way that I like if I'm so outwardly focused, right? And so I did that. And then like lockdown started happening and I'm like, wow. I'm just like, whew. But at the same time, it's like, it's also realizing that there were spaces that I couldn't see myself not in, that I'm not in. And then there was a brief period of time where it was like, I can't even like see myself in these spaces anymore. And even now, it's just like, if I were to return to those spaces, like, what would that even look like? Because I don't even know if I would engage with those spaces in the same manner that I used to. And that's not to say whatever it may sound like I'm trying to say. It's just that, like, and maybe it's a good thing to not know. I honestly think it's a good thing to not know. And maybe that's weird, but I feel like there's a gift and a blessing of rediscovery, right? Because that's kind of sort of the space that you get to whenever you are ejected from certain spaces. And especially when you're ejected from spaces for the sake of healing, right? Because then when you come back to those spaces, you kind of sort of get to rebalance and rework those that more accurately. It's like you step into the ability to use the space for what it was intended for, because you weren't in a space or in a place to be within yourself the person that you needed to be in that space. Because whenever we enter a space, the space is made different because of our presence in it, right? It's kind of like the whatever that was. Like I said, I've been watching Teen Wolf, right? And they talked about how in science there's this thing that like light can be, or photons, or light can be both a photon and a wave, right? But and then and when you start talking about like quantum mechanics, then you start talking about what happens to things because we are observing them, right? And then you go back to Schrodinger's cat, and I don't necessarily like that because of seemingly obvious reasons. But there are things that you don't know until you experience them, until you look, right? But in looking at it, it's different, right? That's like when you go to the zoo. That's not to say that the behaviors that the animals in the zoo exhibit are truly their natural behaviors, because whether they are sort of conscious and cognizant and aware of it or not, they could be changing the way that they act because there are so many eyes on them. You know what I mean? It's like Night at the Museum, where how everything comes to life at night, but in the daytime it's all still, right? It's like Toy Story until the end of Toy Story, where Andy just, man, I don't even know like what kind of like therapy and mental everything that Sid had to go through to recover from that. I mean, it could be argued that he was already at least a little bit disturbed, right? But it's like those are kind of sort of some of the things that we don't know and we don't realize. And I guess if I get like really real about my journey, right? Because this is what I'm being called to do, not called to do, this is what I'm wanting to do. For whatever reason I want to do it. The reasons don't matter. Uh, some of the things that I've been thinking about lately, talking about a Venus retrograde, right? So I'll just say relationships. And I've been in this space lately. I'm going to scoot these over a little bit. I've been in this space lately of like, because I was able to find someone that I care about to the degree that I found, I was able to care about myself in ways that I never had before. And it's weird, and I don't necessarily get it. But if there was one thing that I could say to that person, like right now, it would be that like the love that I had and still have for you, like it opened up the love that I have for myself, and honestly, like so much more. And I feel like I've come into a space, like I've always been like sort of patient and understanding and stuff like that, but I don't know, it's like I've found a really really interesting space. And it's, I don't understand it myself, how loving somebody else could make me love me. But maybe it's just like being open to that amount. It was like there were literally some days where, one day in particular, because of course, like, you know, whenever you're talking to folks and folks are like, oh, you should do this and you should do that. And I'm like, not really saying anything, because at the end of the day, it's like, I kind of sort of know my story, and I have the luxury of finding someone worth believing in. And that's, and it's in and of itself something that I never quite thought I would find, if I'm being 100% honest. And even though things went down the way that they went down, it's like my trust is still there. And my belief is, it's not only is it like still there, I feel like I kind of sort of trust and believe more. And that whole dynamic is interesting in and of itself because of things. But I don't know. It's like, when you find someone worth kind of sort of doing all that for me, it just like changed how I feel about like everything, including myself. Um, and what else was I going to say? I don't know. It's just been like such an interesting space. And there have been like all of these other realizations that I've kind of sort of come to. Like, I made this whole new channel, right? And the way that I'm doing things is changing because there are things, and this goes back into the space of like the love that I have for you unlocked the love that I needed to find for myself. Um, but it's like there are things that I would never ask that person to do, but I put myself in the situation to do them all the time. And especially when it comes to the areas of like authenticity and of like being who you are. Like, I would never ask anyone else to hide who they are. And so it's kind of like through that dynamic, and like regardless of what happens, because like what happens in the future is kind of sort of irrelevant because of the things that needed to happen and the changes that needed to happen happened and are happening, right? But it's like there are things that I would like never ask that person to do. And then so one day I'm like, you know what? Well, if I wouldn't ask this other person to do that, and I don't even want to be remotely near that space of it, like even being a thought, like, oh, I hope they don't say this, and I hope they don't say that, and I hope we just like blend in, right? I hope people don't even ask. Um, just like when it comes to that dynamic, like that's not something that I even want to have to like think about. I don't even want that to be a thought that even like dares cross my mind. And so it changed how I express myself and what I allow myself to do. And then after that, I was like, you know what? Life is too short anyway. Like, life has always been too short. And I don't necessarily like the only editing I do to myself really is like there are things that I don't say or things that I won't share. And it's not that I'm necessarily like, and I don't have to be like extremely open like with everything. But when it comes to the realm of authenticity, like it is inauthentic of me to do some of the things that I was doing sometimes. Right. And it's just like personally so interesting that just like how all that sort of like happened and occurred within the space of like the last few months. And then like I kind of sort of reached a point that I didn't even necessarily know I would reach when it comes to like taking charge of my own life and not just being like finding the next convenient thing, right? Because like kindergarten through 12th grade, you know what you're going to be doing, right? And the next convenient logical step after that was college. And the next convenient logical step after that is like the things that was logical and convenient for like the reasons behind I was pursuing the degree that I was pursuing. And it's not that that isn't something that I would like to do. But then I just had a whole thing about that because it's like, so I want to go like my degree is in pharmaceutical process engineering, right? And so I want to go into medicine to like make people's lives better and easier. And it's sort of like what I considered or thought of as like 3D impactful kind of sort of way, right? But then also like sitting in this space, like through meditation class and even before meditation class, I was like, ooh, like I don't want to be a healer. I don't want to do none of that. Like cards and divination, like that's all. And I felt that that's all for me. Not that that's all I'm capable of, but that's the only way in which I really like serve other people, right? But then I was just thinking about it the other day, and I'm like, so like basically the whole path that I was pursuing with medicine is because I wanted to be a healer without being a healer. And then I'm like where does that thought come from? Where does that hesitation come from? From where does that blockage stem? And then of course I started thinking about that and I'm like, well, you know, that is a possibility. But then when it came to like authenticity and when it came for me, when it came to me being in a space where I allow myself to be more authentic, right? Then it was like, okay, so do all of those like hesitations and blockages kind of sort of like still stand? Or like, where do you stand on this healing thing now? And I'm like, interesting question. I still don't know. Um, but honestly, I don't know. It's like I feel like I've been liberated in ways that I didn't even know or expect. I mean, the whole situation, honestly, is something that I didn't even expect. And I did a reading for myself the other night, and I recorded it because I'm a much better recorder. And I said that in the upload today. It's like I'm a better recorder than I am a reader. Like honestly, because there's something about like me writing it out that just engages my brain in a different way, and it like I get right to what's kind of sort of going on instead of like thinking and talking my way to it. Um, but I ended up putting down like a dream too big for a world too small or something like that. But now that like that dream is as close to reality as it is, it's like my whole world just expanded to fit that. And it's like it I don't know. This Venus retrograde got me like, and it's not even retrograde yet, but Pluto is. So my Pluto natally is in my seventh house, right? So that's the house of relationships. And my natal Pluto is also retrograde. So maybe when Pluto and Capricorn went retrograde, I believe it's actually sextiling my natal Pluto, which is also retrograde. So I'm pretty sure it is. And I think I literally just pieced that together. One of my friends' birthdays is coming up, and he's going to be turning 30. He's a Taurus, and he gives like really, really, really good hugs. I'm like, okay, I I love good hugs. Like it does something to my soul. Like I was having a rough day one day, and I got out of class in Wetherill, which is the chemistry building on Purdue's campus, and there was this girl wearing a red shirt that said "free hugs." And she asked me if I wanted a free hug. And usually, like the persona that I try to wear outside is like, don't look at me, don't talk to me. Like I'm just trying to get to where I'm going, and like just let me be. But I was going through it that day, and I got that hug, and it was like one of the best hugs I've had. It's definitely like top 5 hugs I've had in my life outside of like my mother and my grandmother, and like people that like top 2 to 3 hugs from a stranger hands down. And I'm like, I walked away from that hug feeling like my whole day had shifted, like feeling so much better. So I guess yeah, physical touch is actually one of my love languages too. One of my friends literally Venus in retrograde. Oh my gosh, one of my friends just asked me like what my love languages are. And when it comes to giving, my love languages, like my giving love languages, are different than my receiving love languages. And I just found that out like a year ago or 2 years ago. Because I like to give gifts, and I also like physical touch kind of sort of does both for me, honestly. But like gift giving is like one of my like number one um yeah, gift giving is like one of my number one ways that I like to show somebody else that I appreciate them, because I'm very much so that person that's like, oh, I saw this and I thought of you, so I bought it. I like, oh, well, okay, I can also be a little selfish because it's like, oh, this is something that I want to experience with you, so like I'll pay for it. Like you don't have to buy it, you just have to show up because I want you to do this with me. Um, right? Or like I saw this and I thought of you. Um, but like when it comes to receiving, like words of affirmation is like one of my huge ones. But honestly, like physical touch is up there, especially like if it's a good hug though, not just like any physical touch, but like if it's a good hug, then it does something to my soul that makes me just feel like welcome. And Nathan was like gave really, really, really good hugs, and this dude gives good hugs too, but he's going to be turning 30 in a few weeks, and so she's feeling it. She's like, oh, girl, I'm old. She's like, I'm getting old, sis. And I was like, I'll be a golden girl in a few years too. So, it's all fine. But I'm actually like, there are so many hesitations that I just don't experience in life anymore. And I talked about that in the daily upload or the video today too, of like getting older isn't one of the things that I sort of like dread or fear anymore. And it used to be. I didn't have like full blown Peter Pan syndrome, but like after my 12th birthday or after my 11th birthday, I was like, okay, like I'm done getting older. Because after this, it's just more and more responsibility and stuff that I don't even like. I'm good. Looking at sextiles. Yeah, Pluto, 0.5 degree separation. No, it's an approach. It's a waning approach. Wow. So I already had this Pluto sextile once. And it's half a degree. So it might actually go back and hit exactly. But yeah. So the retrograde Pluto is actually sextiling both less than a degree. It's sextiling both my Mercury and my Pluto, and both my Mercury and my Pluto are naturally retrograde. So I have this transiting retrograde Pluto sextiling my own retrograded planets, and I don't even remember like why I was talking about that, but like why was I talking about that? Because my retrograde planet or my retrograde Pluto is in my seventh house, and so it's kind of sort of like I don't know, maybe Pluto's sort of like, excuse me, been there restricting lots of things. And I didn't even necessarily like too much know it. But now that like my Venus is like free and like I'm open to that seventh house energy, it's just like unlocks so much just like expansion and like things that like I don't know. Anyway, I have a lot of majors and a lot of aces on this table. I'll just read them out. So again, in the left column is the, I guess I'll kind of sort of do it this way. Hey, Miyoshi. Girl, I'm just over here ranting about how Venus coming up on this retrograde got me feeling. And how retrograde Pluto in Capricorn is sextiling my retrograde Pluto in Scorpio in my seventh house, and also sextiling my retrograde Mercury in Pisces in my 12th house. So I guess I got this seventh and 12th connection through Pluto being retrograde now. Retrograde Pluto in Capricorn is serving as the bridge between my seventh house and my 12th house, which actually kind of sort of makes sense if you think about the seventh house as the house of relationships and the 12th house as the house of like the unseen, right? I'm like, wow, I do got that little bridge kind of sort of going on right now. That's kind of sort of cool, isn't it? Party. Let me stop. So I'm not necessarily a love reader, but I am kind of, see, maybe not even. I'm going to just do this side. I'm going to do that side. I'm going to do the middle. And then what's bridging these two sides, right? So I want to do top as past or the bottom as the past. We'll do the bottom as the past because we're going forward into the future. So on one side, we got this Ace of Pentacles. On the other side is the Nine of Wands. So one person who's kind of sort of like been there, done that. Yep. One person who's kind of sort of been there, done that, kind of over it. Like they haven't given up the fight yet. They still got fight left in them, but they're a lot more like they're what's the like battle weary, battle hardened, right? And on this other side is just like straight up Ace of Pentacles. In the middle is the Hanged Man. And the Hanged Man, when it comes to two people, can be a space of kind of sort of like this Nine of Wands and this Ace of Pentacles, just a space of not meeting eye to eye, right? Kind of sort of like playing this reverse role in each other's lives, right? Bridging it on the right is the Six of Swords. Bridging it on the left is the Six of Wands. So coming from that Ace of Pentacles, approaching this hangman space with the mindset of victory, and then coming from this Nine of Wands with the mindset of relief, honestly, with the Six of Swords, right? Maybe sort of reaching this understanding that, like, coming to this hangman position. So I'll say, like, maybe on one hand, it can be that sort of like trying to hold someone to a standard that they're not yet ready to feel on both sides, right? That's why it's sort of upside down. But on the other hand, in a higher aspect, it could be reaching this space of like mutual understanding, but reaching a space of mutual understanding in a way of like, okay, well, how do we take this further? How do we take this beyond, right? And this is beyond like a five of beyond a hierophant, like marriage, beyond a commitment. It's like, it's almost this energy of like, okay, what is something that we can do together better than we can do it apart? Where do our interests align, right? Where does, like, it's like we individually have purpose. What is our joint purpose, right? I kind of sort of like that. So one person is probably definitely. I feel like it's definitely, like, I don't want to minimize anyone's actual experiences, but it's definitely like this, like, PTSD kind of sort of feeling when you're going from the Nine of Wands to the Six of Swords. Because I feel like it's like, because the Knight of Wands in its shadow can be very defensive, right? Especially depending on how wounded, like, or how battle weary and battle hardened this person is. It can be extremely defensive. And so it's like someone learning to drop their defenses, but kind of sort of like, it's like they get these like phantom triggers, right? And it's these triggers related, like the trigger itself is valid, but the cause isn't necessarily the cause that they're used to, right? It's almost like seeing certain things as red flags because of what it meant in the past, but not necessarily like seeing it as like, um, one of this person's shortcomings is just what came to mind, right? And the difference between a shortcoming and a red flag is, I feel that, like, one second. I feel it's like these charts so quickly. I feel it's like with a shortcoming, it's like this is something that the person just like does. Whereas with the red flag, I feel like this is how that person tries to establish some sort of power dynamic, I guess is one way I can say it, right? And so let's say that, like, oh, I'm trying to use a non-specific example. Let's say that, like, someone like likes the color orange, and so like they have orange shirts and they have orange this and they have orange that, and then it's like, for some reason, every time you talk to or dated someone who liked the color orange, they ended up being not great, right? And so now mentally, through what you've been through, you kind of sort of associate people who like the color orange with people who aren't going to treat me right, right? But in reality, like, this person just likes the color orange, and it's not necessarily one to do with another. But you kind of see that sort of how, like, all of the patterns that have sort of been like, because our brains are plastic, right? They talk about neuroplasticity. And so they're so easily formed by the experiences that we go through, especially when we're younger, or especially when we're newer in a situation and we're kind of sort of building and testing that space for the same time. And Dr. Trillion something, she did a video. It's a TED talk. It's a TEDx talk. So maybe if you Google like TEDx Trillion or TEDx Dr. Trillion, her video will pop up. And I think it's like, it was titled about love, but I feel like it didn't end up being about love until the end of the video. But she was talking about how, like, she went like rafting for the first time, right? and there was a snake that got on her little whatever, and she didn't like it. She said she would never ever do it again. But then she kind of sort of realized that, like that one experience shaped her whole view of it as a whole. And that one experience is like, how often is that to happen? Right. And so it's sort of challenging that space of learning and accepting and recognizing that the experiences that you've had in the past aren't always going to be the experiences in the future. And it's one thing to challenge those spaces, but it's another thing to heal those spaces. And then it's an additional thing on top of that to re-enter those spaces. And it's another layer on top of that to re-enter those spaces freer of the baggage that you picked up in the past, right? Entering those spaces as a function and entering those spaces through the healing, not simply re-entering those spaces, right? And so, yeah, that's kind of sort of the feeling that I'm getting, like coming from this Nine of Wands into the Six of Swords. And then on the other side, going from the Ace of Pentacles into the Six of Wands is just like, it's honestly giving me like Page of Wands vibes. Or it's like Page of Volcanoes, because you got this Page of Pentacles, but also this Page of Wands. And it's something that's like very eruptive and very explosive, and not explosive in a bad way, but explosive in like after a volcano erupts, right? The soil in that sort of area becomes like nutrient rich. I'm pretty sure. I'm like fairly certain that like the soil after a volcano erupts, or the soil in like kind of sort of volcanic areas, is like nutrient rich, right? And it's that fire that sort of purifies and lays and gives space for things to grow out of that new ground, right? Because it's like you've purified all of the bad stuff, left only the good stuff, and the good stuff is what the plants really need to grow, and then things just like boom. So that's this sort of like Page of Volcanoes type of energy. It's not a page of scorched earth. Ooh, it's a page of like warm sand or hot sand, like good sand, like good hot sand, like when it like feels good on your feet, and not when it's like burning you, because it's not the page of scorched earth. This is the page of hot sands, or the page of warm sands. Is that a thing? It is now. Um, but it's just like someone who's ready to build and someone who's ready to materialize, but with like a passion and a focus and a desire, like that kind of sort of. It's like a Page of Pentacles 2.0 adjacent energy. But like if we're using like video games and RPGs, you know how like you specialize, right? This is like a Page of Pentacles who's specializing in like that. It's a Page 2.0 who has a Wands specialty and a Wands focus because of the gusto in which they pursue it. And it's more of that Page of Pentacles energy, because I feel like this energy is more dedicated to seeing these things actually come to fruition. Because I feel like if a Page of Wands has to work too hard, then it kind of sort of like it dims that spark. And once that spark dims enough, then it'll seek something else that it's passionate about, right? That's the one thing that you kind of sort of got to watch out for with the Page of Wands. With the Page of Warm Sands, it's like the sands themselves can warm the sort of like provides enough warmth to keep this thing going, right? It's almost like incubating an egg in warm sand. Is that a thing that you can do? I don't know. But that's the feeling I'm getting of them coming into this sort of past space, right? Now sitting at the present, and these cards are bridging the past and the present, the Six of Swords and the Six of Wands. So sitting at present is the Hermit on one side, the Ace of Cups on the other side, and then the Ace of Wands in the in-between space, right? And so again, we're going from the Nine of Wands to this Ace of Cups, bridged by the Six of Swords into this Hangman, Ace of Wands type of energy. So I feel like with the Ace of Wands sitting in the middle, I feel like, hold up. I'm gonna do this both ways, because now I'm looking at this And I don't know if this is like me trying to find my own place in this situation that I'm reading, but I'm like, that is definitely past for me. But also, honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, it is actually this new future, but it's kind of sort of present. Anyway, me outside of this. Um, and I've loved this deck, especially when it comes to like human experiences, right? I like to use the SKT for like more like mystical types of like woo woo types of like out there things. I'm really, really loving this for things that we like live day to day, things that we experience, things that we feel, matters of the heart and matters of the mind when it comes to how we interact with other people. This is a very like, and that, I mean, it's the Pride Tarot. So, it makes sense that with the community being such a huge focus, it deals with like interpersonal relationships. Um, but anyway, so on top of that Knight of Wands is this Ace of Cups. And I feel like with the Six of Swords, it's like the further that person was able to get away from all of that stuff in the past, right? Because it's like recognizing the space, recognizing that your experiences have shaped and defined this space for you, healing that, coming into that, and then allowing that healing to be with you as you navigate again through that space, right? And I feel like that's where this sort of Ace of Cups comes in, because it's like they're sailing away from that sort of hyper defensive energy. They're sailing away. I feel like as maybe as like you learn somebody else, or as you do your own healing, and as they do their healing, you sort of come into this joint recognition of each other's healing, because you've done, it's like once you do your own healing, there are certain filters that sort of like lift, and a lot of those filters are the self filters, the self-preservation filters that you've put on to kind of sort of navigate around dangers and to perceive threats emotionally in any other kind of way when you see them, right? But as you do your healing and those filters come down, you're able to more accurately see the other person, and then maybe more accurately able to see beyond that person as far as like a trajectory, right, into the future. And so this person over here on the Nine of Wands is coming into this Ace of Cups as they're moving with that Six of Swords, sailing into the space, which is also leading them to this like Ace of Wands type of excitement energy, right? And I feel like, so this present space is like both the future, it's sitting in between the past and the future, right? So this is how I'm going to read it. First, so we're sailing away, right, to this Ace of Wands through this now present Ace of Cups energy, right? Not only I feel like are they sort of looking at you differently, I feel like they're looking at everything differently. Again, because of that healing. And because of that healing, excuse me, and because of their willingness to engage this space in a different way, it's like those filters come down. And when the filters come down, you're more able to easily see and recognize things for what they are. And I feel like there's also a very like spiritual sort of connection thing going on here, right? For this person who was more defensive, and maybe in that increased spirituality, they're able to see kind of sort of like, not only are they able to accept the things from the past and heal from them, I feel like they're also entering the space where they're able to see the lessons in the things of the past and approaching the space to be able to appreciate them, right? Because it's like going from accepting the past to appreciating the past, which may sound weird, right? For people who, um, I'll just say for like people who have especially rough situations that affected them in very, very deep ways. Um, and it may be something that you learn to appreciate later in life, because after you heal from it, after you incorporate the lessons, you find a certain strength that it gave you, the strength that it took you to overcome it, right? The strength that it took you to reach that place of healing that you wouldn't have had if you didn't have to heal it, right? It's like in martial arts when you like break bones, they grow back stronger or whatever. Like, don't quote me on that. But you know, sometimes you got to break your hand on the board a few times before you can break the board with your hand. I ain't telling nobody to go punch boards or walls or bricks or whatever. And then on this side, oops, sorry, it's going from the Hermit to the Six of Wands to this Ace of Wands. And I feel like where they had the vision before with that Ace of Pentacles, right? The page of, whoa. Okay, yeah, that was the energy I was getting from it. I'm like, why did I just put a page on this ace? I mean, pages hold aces. So, um, but it's like they saw the victory before. They saw, and it's not even like victory as a sense of like, oh, I'm going to win. It's victory in a sense of like all of the great things that they had to gain through going through the journey. It's like everything that it would unlock, right? And like if I'm speaking from personal experience, it's like 2019 was a very, very, very intent year for me. My intention was to find the areas in life that I was the weakest, find the things that I was the most uncomfortable with, and find the things that I was the most afraid of, and to heal them. And so, whenever I entered a space that was full of uncertainty, that was full of anxiety and like fear and like I don't know, right? I knew that what I would gain from going through those situations would put me in a much better space. And so that's kind of sort of like that victory energy. Like I know that I'm going to get through this no matter what happens. And so I'm going to pursue this bold, brave, I'm going to pursue this new unknown thing boldly and bravely because I know that at the end of it, I'm going to be much better for the pursuit of it. Right. And it's sort of that energy more so than like, I'm going to win. Right. It's like, I'm going to reach the space that I know I need to reach by going through this thing that I'm afraid of. By going through the dark, I will claim a new light. Right. And so with this Hermit, I feel like with the Hermit leading into the Six of Wands, leading into the Ace of Wands, I feel like not only I feel like there was just like this self mastery with the Hermit and the Six of Wands. Yeah, I really like that for the Hermit and the Six of Wands. I feel like there's this like deeper understanding of self and this self mastery. I feel like there's also an element of again, because like you have one person sitting at the ace and then you have another person sitting at the nine, right? So just take that in mind. And then you have the hangman in the middle. So already just like on two completely different levels coming into this. And not even levels as a sense of levels, but levels as a sense of like mentality, maybe. Right. Ace of Pentacles, Nine of Wands. So it ain't like the Nine of Cups or the Nine of Pentacles. It's like the Nine of Wands, which isn't the Nine of Swords, which is, you know, better. Maybe. Not that one is necessarily better or worse than the other. It's just the journey potentially. And so there's like this element of self mastery and this element of victory over the self because you're able to see and understand self in a way that you hadn't before, right? Because it's like on this side with the Nine of Wands, I feel like a lot of mirroring that happened to this person in the past may have been like in a not so great way. Or it's like they took on all of these lessons with the Nine of Wands in the past, but they weren't able to like see why without that mirror. Maybe they weren't able to see the ways in which they had changed and the ways that they had adapted to avoid certain like hurts and pains and frustrations. But on this side, when you come to this mirror, it's like you also have to see yourself in ways that you didn't have to before, right? And I feel like the ways in which that's happening now, yeah, definitely self mastery. Okay, because I'm looking at the cards now and I'm like, even though like the Hermit and the Six of, like, talking about self mastery, that's almost giving me more of a magician type of energy. But the magician is literally sitting above the Six of Wands on the table, connecting the present of this Hermit to the future that it's going to be going into, right? Because it's 3 2 3 2 1, and so the two and the space in between kind of sort of bridge the past and the present, and then the present and the future. So they kind of overlap in this present moment. Oh, so they're like little triangles. Okay. Oh, it's like a little number 8. It's like this little infinity sign in the middle. Oh, the magician, strength. They both, wait, does strength have that? No, it's the magician that has the 8 above its head. It might also be on the strength card too. Anyway, continuing. Well, strength is number 8. So, unless it's justice, but I'm not getting into that. um, but yeah, on this other side, it's like this element of self mastery that's bringing this increased passion. Because you go from this page of warm sands, right? But the page of warm sands, like, there are things that the page of warm sands wants to see accomplished. But the page of warm sands, since it is a page, the willingness to do, because the pinnacle part of that page, right? The willingness to do whatever it takes to see, to like go the distance, right? To be in for the long haul is there, but it's going to require things of this page that the page doesn't yet know is going to be required of it, right? And some of those things are going to be these like looks at the self. It's going to be the revelation of internal blockages, the revealing of internal blockages, the revelation of internal blockages, right? And not even blockages in a sense of like making this connection work, but blockages in a sense of like taking it beyond, right? Because with the hangman energy, it's like, okay, it's like, how do we take this beyond? How do we elevate this, right? And I feel like that's kind of sort of the access that's kind of sort of coming in. Now, moving into the future, we have the Hierophant, the messenger on that side. So at the bottom of that side, again, the past was the 9 of Wands, present is the Ace of Cups, future is the Hierophant, which that's beautiful energy. I mean, call me biased because Venus is about to retrograde, and like Venus is like, honestly, Venus has kind of sort of been lit in my chart since 2020 rolled around. Because the first time the moon went into Aries, it like lit my Venus up, and I remember it. Miyoshi, you may remember because it was like that one day, early January. I was just like super lit, like feeling those Venusian energies. It's fine. But yeah, so my Venus has been lit since like January. When the moon first hit its Venus, when the moon first conjuncted my Venus, it just like woke it up, and it's been up ever since. Now it kind of like flares up a little bit more the closer to Aries the moon is, but I'm getting into this space where I don't need the moon to be there for my Venus to be lit, because my Venus is already there. Like, she don't really need no shine. She was getting her beauty rest in because she liked to look good and well rested, and the only Prada and Gucci bags that she has are like the ones around her arms and sitting in the chair over there, like not the ones under her eyes. She needed her rest. So, and on the other side of was me, block, block, block. Like, nah. Why am I talking about Venus and Aries? Yeah, so we go from this 9 of Wands to the Ace of Cups to the Hierophant. So this is like from a 9 to an Ace to, and I actually love that because 9s are all about completion, right? And then you go from a 9 to a 10, which is a new beginning. But the one that we get after this 9 is an Ace. And after the Wands comes the Cups, right? The Wands is the fire, that's the desire, that's kind of sort of instinct in a way as well. If you think about desire as a like there are the sort of like lustier sides of primal instinct, which is desire, and then there are like the self-protective sides of primal instinct, which we naturally call like the instinct, right? Survival instincts. But it's all kind of sort of like these natural sort of things that just come from that whatever place that is, right? And so we're kind of sort of like moving from those to this like loving energy. We're going from fire to water to earth, which is beautiful because earth, I mean, it's the messenger, and the messenger talks about that connection on every plane, right? It's like the priestess is a connection in a very like astral, ethereal, spiritual mode. But the Hierophant is the energy that takes that astral, etheric, spiritual connection and makes it like brings it down to the 3D, but also it like brings it down to the 3D in a way that you understand it, but it also brings it down to the 3D in a way that gives rise to infrastructures and institutions and organizations, right? Because it also rules like I don't know, churches and stuff like that. Um, and so it's like with that Ace of Cups again, with that Ace of Cups sort of like healing and the understanding that comes in because of that healing, we're also coming into this Hierophant where you really build upon that foundation, right? And that's kind of sort of the fourth step, right? Because it was like first you realize and recognize that your past experiences have given you this total viewpoint of the space, and then you heal it, then you re-enter, and then you integrate the healing with that re-entry, and that is after you do that, then it just like completely changes the game. And that's where the game is changed on this messenger because it operates on every plane within self and on understanding, right? That was on that side. On this side is the Two of Wands, which I was like, why the Two of Wands? Like, for why? So we go from an ace, the Ace of Pentacles, to the Hermit, which is more earth energy, to this Two of Wands. And it's interesting because on this side, you're starting at earth and you're ending up in fire. And on the other side, you're starting in fire and you're ending up in earth. Right? So that's interesting. Um, but with that Two of Wands, I feel like that's coming to the space of that's maybe where like some pages of Warm Sands are going to choose to be either pages of Wands or pages of Pentacles or pages of volcanoes, right? You go from the page of Warm Sands to maybe like the king or the queen of volcanoes instead of a page of volcanoes. Yeah, I like that better. Okay. So this is where you decide to go from like either you rise from the page of Warm Sands. I kind of want to mix all of these now, right? And have just like these combined sort of energies between like pages and nights. And anyway, I've been like wanting to do a lot of that lately, just restructuring the way that I do it. Anyway, and then okay, let me not talk about that because I talked about it in daily upload number 4, and now the video has no audio. It has audio on my iPad, but when it uploaded for some reason, and that's the only video I've ever uploaded where it ain't no sound. And I'm like, really? Maybe it wasn't meant for me to say nothing then. Okay. Or maybe it did. Let me go back and check and see if it has sound. But when I tried to listen to it before, it didn't have sound, and I was like, "Where's the sound? Hello?" Anyway, so we're going from this page of Warm Sands, like either you're gonna like on that tree because it is a page 2.0. Well, this is like a page 1.5, the page of Warm Sands, because it's kind of sort of in between now. And the only reason why I'm putting it at an in between now is because this decision has to be made in the future, right? So on this side, in the future, we have a decision. Whereas on the other side, in the future, they have an answer. And that's the only, like, it's interesting. But again, they are coming fresh off of this Ace of Cups, right? And the other person is coming fresh off of this Hermit. So the person in the Hermit now, and I feel like going from the Ace of Pentacles to the Hermit, like that may be the person that had to kind of sort of step back a little bit. Maybe they were moving a little bit too fast, too fiery, too furiously with that Six of Wands, and then the other person is like also moving, but they're moving out of something with that Six of Swords. It's like one person was moving out of something and another person was moving towards something, and they're both going somewhere. but on one side the focus is more on like what you're leaving behind, and on the other side the focus was more on what you're going towards. Right. So even though they're heading in the same direction, it's like one person's moving forward, looking forward, the other person's moving forward, looking back. So there's like this whole like Eight of Cups sort of in between this Knight of Wands and this Six of Swords. But the reason why the Eight of Cups isn't here is because the cups were still there. So they're moving physically away, but emotionally, I think the tie to that space was still there because the Eight of Cups isn't here. They haven't walked away from it. 1 second. All right, I'm back now. That was my mother. Low key, y'all, I was talking to Miyoshi and I just got hit with this craving for a Popeye's chicken sandwich. And I was like, so like when we going to Popeyes? And I'm like, what they put in them sandwiches? Because they good. Like they ain't like they're not so good that I would act the fool, but they are like pretty good. Anyway, this ain't about Popeyes, this ain't about chicken. I'm so glad I ain't got no trolls over here, y'all, because I would have to hit a block real quick. Okay. Anyway, I don't even know why I went there. Okay. All right, brain. Like, can we get back to this, please? Yes. All right. Thank you for cooperating. You can laugh about that later. So yeah, that's why the Eight of Cups isn't here. Because I feel like their tie was still there. And it's like I said, it's like you can re-enter a space without healing. And if you re-enter that space without healing, then that's where this sort of like this happens where it can't just like solidly and firmly lock into place. It's like you're trying to like get it in there, trying to get it and then hope it locks, but then it just like shakes apart. Hit the switch. They got me advertising now, right? We interrupt this spiritual broadcast to bring you Popeyes. Girl, like for real? No. But little Nikki, after Nikki went to heaven and then Nikki came back, right? And then he was like fighting the demons. He's like some of this big old bucket of Popeye's chicken. And he was like, put it in your mouth and let it slide down your throat hole. And they was like, wow, Popeye's chicken is it happened there too. What's up with Popeyes? Okay, anyway. Miyoshi! Alright. Hit the switch again. I just flipped the switch. Flip. Is that song? I saw I was browsing YouTube and they had Emma Spinner and Archie from Degrassi talking about what it was like to film that music video with Drake. I didn't watch the whole thing, but I watched a few minutes. They were like, yeah, it was like totally cool. It was like rad, you know, because, you know, we knew each other back when he was just Aubrey, when he was, I can't even remember his name anymore. What was his name in that show? Anyway, this ain't about Degrassi either. Why am I getting so distracted? So yeah, the Eight of Cups isn't here, and it's like they were trying to get themselves to re-enter this space. And I feel like since the Hangman is here, I feel like not only was this kind of sort of disconnect between the two people, but it also created this sort of disconnect internally. And because of the internal disconnect on this side, excuse me, when they were able to go through this Ace of Cups healing, through this Ace of Cups deepening of connection and transformation, right? Then there's like this invisible Eight of Cups that kind of sort of happened to get them, or that maybe it's like in like present past, there's this Ace of Cups, and in like present to present future, there's this Eight of Cups, where that emotional walking away and that emotional healing now begins to take place, and then they're going to come into this sort of hierophant like energy, like I'm ready now. But now on the other side, the person is in this like Two of Wands sort of like conflicted area. And it may be because this Six of Wands, right? And it again, oh, I didn't even read that. Okay, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. Okay. So on the side with the Ace of Pentacles, the Hermit, they go into the future, the Two of Wands, which is all about making a decision. It's all about, like this is what the initial goal was. How do I move forward with this? Or am I going to pivot and kind of sort of change directions? On the other side, again, is that Nine of Wands, Ace of Cups, Hierophant, where they're kind of sort of like locked into it now. I feel like there's a lot of healing, lots of filters and perceptions being lifted. In the middle, the space that they share is the Lovers. The Lovers did come out, right? So the Two of Pentacles is the Two of Pentacles is what is linking the Hierophant to the Lovers. And the Magician is what is linking the Two of Wands to the Lovers. And so, again, and that's on the side of that self mastery again, right? It's like someone really came into this space where it's like the healing that they did. And there's almost this energy, and again, this may be me projecting a little bit to try to sort of fill it in, but it's also kind of sort of coming to me this way. So if I need to make it more general, it'll come to me in a more general way after. But it's like with the Nine of Wands over here, a lot of this person's blockages were the result of external situations. And with the Ace of Pentacles, Six of Wands into the Hermit over here, it's like a lot of this person's blockages were internal blockages. And since this person, because like this is the mirrored sort of healing that's happening in this situation, right? If both people choose to heal, I feel like I should clarify it by saying that. And like choose to do, I don't have to go into it. And so it's like when this person did their healing, realizing that like a lot of their blockages was the result of other people outside, like on the other side, this person is like finally taking down their own blockages. And that's sort of why they're coming into this Magician energy, right? That's the self mastery. And now it's like, now that they have their Magician's wand, they're like, okay, well, do I want to continue to manifest this? Or do I want to take this wand and manifest something completely different? And on the other side with this Two of Pentacles, like the Two of Pentacles in this deck is very like, this is not like struggling to juggle at all. Like this is very effortless. This is fun. This is like, okay, I've weighed out my options and I'm ready to come in. And I feel like this is something that I can do now and not necessarily have to take away from the other things that I was doing at the time. Because maybe also with that Nine of Wands, it was like there are a lot of sort of different demands on their energy and different demands on their attention. And they kind of sort of wanted different things, right? And maybe they were finding this space again with the Hierophant where it could all kind of sort of like fit in onto the different levels. Like there's this organization energy with this Hierophant that I'm not necessarily feeling from this Hermit, and the Hermit is actual Virgo energy. But anyway, but like with the Hierophant, it's like all about finding the place for everything, right? Because it's also like institutional. So there's a certain amount of infrastructure, right, with that Hierophant. And so I feel like this person is finally, maybe there were time commitments or other energetic commitments that sort of like fell to the wayside now, or that they like concluded those. So now that they have more time, now it's like, okay, like I'm ready to do this now. And the other person is now in this space of like if I can manifest this, like I can manifest anything. Like I feel like that other person is still in this Ace of Pentacles, or like even more into the Ace of Pentacles energy, right? Because again, I say like they go from this page of warm sands to the King or Queen of volcanoes. And so not only do they have the force of a volcano, but like wherever they direct that force, the ground beneath it is going to be more fertile. And also, along with that volcano, the fire element is like the purification and all of the shedding necessary and needed to get there. So I guess the lovers in this reading is a choice. It seems like one person has finally made their choice, and another person is in a space where they're making theirs. Yeah. And this is where I'm going to leave it because I feel like ultimately at the end of the day, like this is one of those things where I'm actually going to find the title card and I'm going to see what's around the title card because I'm feeling that like this is one of those things. Empress at the bottom of the deck, followed by the King of Cups, and then the Six of Pentacles. Oh my gosh, with the Three of Cups before that, celebration. And then the Three of Wands before that. So Three of Wands, Three of Cups, and then Six of Pentacles, King of Cups, Empress. Anyway, I'm looking for the title card because I'm feeling like this is, and here's the title card right here. Oh, wow. Wow. Ooh, okay, this is interesting. This is interesting. I'm going to preface this by I'm going to tell you why I look for the title card. Because I feel like this is something that I'm supposed to leave as is. I don't think there's supposed to be an answer either way. On the one side, where one person is facing this sort of crossroads decision, do I want to continue to manifest that or do I want to manifest something new? I feel like that person doesn't 100% for sure know where this other person is, right? And they don't know how long it's going to take this other person to reach whatever space they need to reach. They don't know how long it's going to take this person to say or do whatever they need to say or do, right? Because that other person, like the energy is still a Two of Pentacles. Like this may be a Two of Pentacles that's ready and like enjoying the juggling and finding something worth juggling, but at the end of the day, it's still a Two of Pentacles. On the other side, you got a magician, somebody ready to make something happen. And then you have this potentially life altering choice with the lovers in between, right? Because that's sort of the level of choice. Like, this isn't a Two of Wands sort of like crossroads. This isn't a Two of Swords type of indecision. Like, this is the lovers. This is a choice that has the power to impact your life for many, many, many years to come, if not like completely. That's the level of this choice. And it's like for the person who's coming to the space where they're ready to commit, I feel like you're going to have to make whatever you got to do to try to come back if you're the one who's coming back. Because again, the Six of Swords is on your side. So maybe you're the person who's doing a little bit more movement than the other person. Like, you're going to have to be the one that comes back. And when you come back, you're not going to know if they're going to take you. Like, you're not going to know if they're like, hey, like maybe we should just be friends because I think we work better as friends. Like, we work well as friends. Or you don't know if they're going to be like, oh my gosh, like, yes, like, let's do this. Or you don't know if they're going to be like, you know what, like what you put me through, like, I'm over it and I'm manifesting something new. And it's actually kind of sort of lit. And I'm like, kind of really excited about it. And you're just kind of sort of like, there now, there. But, you weren't there before, but now you want to be. Okay. And I feel like, so like either way, I feel like it's important for these people to not know exactly where the other person stands, because with these choices, ultimately at the end of the day, both people, either they both choose the same thing or they don't, right? And coming out of the spaces that they're in, it's like you're not making your choice depending on what choice the other person makes, right? Because ultimately you should be making the choice that's best for you. And if the choice that's best for you is pursuing this further, regardless of what you fear or regardless of what the outcome would be, you should do that, because that, I feel like that pursuit is kind of sort of what this is teaching you. And on the other side, it's like, if you don't know if you should manifest something brand new or continue to manifest this, like that's also a choice that you should make, because you're learning to put your power behind your actions, right? And so that's why I went looking for the title card, because there is no advice here. Or the advice here is to choose from the heart and to move forward accordingly, regardless of the space that the other person is going to be in. Is to make the decision that you want to make, right? And it's interesting that you're like, this is in context of a relationship, right? And so it's like, you're making this decision that you also hope someone else will make. But at the end of the day, even though you're deciding to meet with someone else, you're deciding to meet with someone else because it's what you want to do, right? And so that's not to say that the other person doesn't have a say in the situation, but it's understanding and recognizing the autonomy of each person in the situation, right? And it's being in the space of, if the other person doesn't want to come, like, it's okay. Like, it's maybe not preferred, but it is what it is. And then around the title card, the reason why I was like, oof, is because, so to the right, I pulled the cards immediately before and after, and then I'm going to show you the cards on the side. So the world card, the title card, I've been seeing this world card like every day for the past few days. I've seen it. It's come out. This title card, and then temperance. So one person is at the world space, the other person is at the temperance space. One person maybe had some major closings and major healings to go through, and it's not that the other person didn't have things to do, but it's like they're kind of sort of in the space of alchemizing in a different way. Because I feel like a lot of the alchemy over here is like self alchemy, right? And so it's still healing and it's still doing things like that, but it's working within the self to further oneself. Whereas the healing over here, I feel like, is more so closing external karmic cycles that involve relationships to other people, right? And even though this is a relationship involving each other as one of those relationships, that you kind of sort of get the differentiation. Now, on the side of this world card is the sun, right? And if I set these down, the way they came out is like this world, and the sun is on the side of the Nine of Wands, Ace of Cups, Hierophant, the messenger. And on the side of this temperance card is the Ten of Swords. So this person's gone through their own kind of sort of closing. And with that temperance card, like, I don't know where that internal alchemy is going to sort of leave it, but this is kind of sort of what I was saying, right? It's like you've done everything that you needed to do solo, and when it comes to moving this forward, like, you don't know if this is a world card, like ready for a new beginning into the sun outcome, or if this is a temperance card leading into a Ten of Swords outcome. Like, I've waited too long. At the end of the day, it's like, was it great? Was it fun? Was it pretty for the time? Yeah. Is it worth continuing? Ten of Swords. Two of Wands, maybe choosing a different direction. Or it could be this world card leading into the sun, right? Like, there is no answer. You just have to make whatever decision. Like, that's the Lovers in this. It's whatever decision you feel called to make. And I would hope and that I would pray that after all of the healing that you've done, or after all of the internal, like, self alchemy, after the area of mastery, after all the healing and the mastery and the ascension that you've achieved, I would hope that you don't make a choice out of fear, right? I would hope that if you are sitting on the side of the messenger, the Hierophant, coming into this Two of Pentacles, that you wouldn't choose to not pursue this because you're afraid that the other person won't meet you in this space. And at the same time, I would hope that after you come into this element of self mastery and realizing kind of sort of the power and impact of your ability, that you wouldn't choose to manifest someone new, to manifest a new situation out of fear that this other person won't meet you in that space. Right. And I feel like that is the point that should be emphasized the most. Now I'm going to look and see. I'm going to see what's around strength, because I mentioned the strength card when it came to the Magician. And let's see what's around strength. Strength actually came out earlier today in the Taurus Libra video. Is this strength? No, that's the Knight of Pentacles. I do that every single time. I love the colors on those cards though. Like, yes, the illustrator, like, was it Stephen Morrison? Like, he really did that. I believe it was Stephen Morrison. I don't remember. I'll see in a second when I pull this card. Here we go. Now here we go. Now here we go. Baby. Ooh, 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 ooh. Oh my. Interesting. Okay. Oh wow, this is really interesting actually. Mm, okay. So, and now we're talking about strength. So on the Hierophant side of strength is this King of Pentacles going into this Justice card. And again, this is the same side as the World and the Sun. So the strength over there is the King of Pentacles and Justice. On the side of the Temperance card leading into the Ten of Swords is the Devil and the Emperor. And what I feel like this is really, it's like you're at this very, very, very pivotal. And again, this is about the Lovers, right? The Lovers is a great choice that has the power to affect your experience of this life over the next few years to the rest of your life, right? And so it's like if you make the choice out of fear, I feel like you're going to sort of be locking yourself into those sort of fear-based cycles. With the, like, you have the Emperor coming after this Devil, like that's tyrannical, that's the tyrant, right? And the worst thing about this tyrannical energy is that you won't even be the tyrant. You're going to be someone subjected to the rule of the tyrant, right? Not that you should want to be a tyrant, but you know what I mean? Like, if there's a tyrannical relationship, I feel like it'd be better to be the tyrant than to be under the subjugation of the tyrant, even though on a soul level, it would probably not be better to be the tyrant because I feel like you'd have more karma to pay off anyway. Like, that's basically handing all your power over to the things that kept you chained and bound in the past. And in a way that'd be like kind of sort of betraying all of the healing that you've done. But on the other side, we have the king of, I mix them up, but we have this king of pentacles into justice. And the king of pentacles is fixed earth with this justice card. King of Pentacles under the world, justice under the sun. Like that's very much that, like, you know, Lion King, everything that this that like the sun touches is our kingdom type of energy. So like maybe I'll title this like you can be either a lion or you can be a hyena. You can live in the light or you can live in the shadow. And that's why I say like I really, really, really hope that after everything that you've done, that you wouldn't make a decision out of a space of fear of not being met in that space. And that's where I'm going to wrap this up. That's everything that I have to say. I guess I'll give this one final shuffle, and then whatever card comes out will be the closing remarks. But yeah, and like this is general anyway, so I'm not going to say, oh yeah, like that person's coming back, or oh yeah, this person sees your worth and this person is coming for you, because I mean, we all got a lot of people in our lives, and with Venus going in retrograde, when Pluto is retrograde, in Gemini, node shifting into Gemini. Ooh, this Queen of Swords came out. This Queen of Swords was actually sitting after the Justice card, and I didn't pull it. I was like, oh, that's interesting. So Justice into the Queen of Swords, like that's like doubly justice, like Libra energy for sure. Relationships, harmonious, partnerships, all of that. Oof. I feel like I needed this just as much. Nine of Swords. And this is, again, even though this is Gemini energy, the Nine of Swords is related to the Queen of Swords, related to that justice. So, and that's what I was saying. Like, don't make anxiety-based, fear-based, lack-based decisions. Don't not pursue what you want. Ooh, cutting to the title card in the King of Cups. King of Cups, period, point blank. Because who knows? Who knows? But it's like, don't make decisions out of the fear that you won't get them. Because, like, that's literally like what, like, that's not you using your abilities or using your power. Like, settling and making decisions out of fear because you don't think you're good enough or because you don't think you're going to be met in that space, like, that's quite honestly not what this whole journey has been about. Maybe for you that is your journey, and maybe for you that is your path this time. So maybe I shouldn't speak so grandly for everyone involved, but I would hope, again, I don't know how many times I've said it, like, I would hope that we make the choices to claim what it is that we have coming for us and to not sacrifice it because of unhealed shadows, I guess is an easy way to put it. No telling who coming back. I mean, honestly, like, I mean, with both Venus and Pluto retrograde, like, that can be anybody. Like, we talking about zombies from the past because Pluto was like Pluto, right? Tell me why this whole, I'm going to take every single one of them. At the bottom of the deck is the World. But again, it's like, making sure that you're in the space that you need to be in, regardless of who comes back or who doesn't come back. Because if you're not in the space that you need to be in, it kind of sort of doesn't matter. It's a moot point. Because if you're not ready to claim it, you know what I mean? You're not going to be ready to claim it. But this little, oof, 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 oof. Well, this is interesting. So we have the Moon card, which is all about things that are hidden, things governed by the realm of intuition, right? And so these are the things that are impossible to know. That's what I'll say. These are the things that are impossible to know, but not impossible to feel. Going into this Five of Cups. And this Five of Cups is asking us if we're going to continue old cycles that don't work with the Three Cups, or are we going to pursue new cycles that do work with the Two Cups? We're already old cycle heavy. That's why there's three up here and two back there. I want to see somebody illustrate this as like three upright cups and two cups. I want to see somebody illustrate this Four of Cups as four cups upright and one cup that's in reverse. Because honestly, at the end of the day, if you really kind of sort of look into all of what it could be, that's honestly the reality of the situation. Because you're going to be claiming two cups that lead to so many more, whereas you're just like crying over three that are already spilled. Anyway, that's sort of asking you like which you're going to take. And with the Seven of Pentacles and this Ace of Pentacles leading to Eight Pentacles altogether, Eight of Pentacles is all about sort of mastery, right? Becoming a master at a craft because of the time that you pour into it, right? It's an investment. The Eight of Pentacles is an investment. Are you going to invest into the things that you actually want with the Ace of Cups? Are you going to invest into, it's like, you're going to invest into the things, or you're going to invest into wanting the things. Like, are you going to continue to want it? Or are you actually going to do it? Are you actually going to go for it? Going into the Ten of Swords and this Empress, we see both with like the representation of the moon behind them, right? But that moon is surrounded by 10 swords. That moon is attached to the Empress. Are you going to create something brand new? Or are you going to continue to let your inner demons sort of keep you in this space where your head and your heart aren't even connected? It's a little grisly, but her head and her body aren't connected. She's living as two separate entities. Like, like that's the sort of choice. And then what's the last card? This King of Wands. And the King of Wands is a woman. Yes. But it's the King of Wands, right? The King of Wands is all about you taking ownership and creating and pursuing what it is that you actually want, what you actually desire. And again, the World card was at the bottom of the deck. Okay, so I'm going to shut this down here. I'm going to, I just want like one card. Can I get one card, please? Can you give me one card? Because I was like kind of up. There we go. Thank you. That was like a whole message. King of Pentacles. Are you going to be the ruler and the master of your own reality? Are you going to take charge and take a stand and become that, right? Bottom of the deck is that Five of Cups again. So either you're going to do it or you're not going to do it. I mean, it's honestly kind of sort of that simple. But, that is what that is. Do I feel any better or any more satisfied after that? I mean, I guess I wanted to use these cards. I wanted to talk about how Venus has been just like rocking me. Not like rocking me, but man, between like the feelings, and it's not even feelings necessarily attached to a certain person. It's just like these overwhelming, like heart just like lit. Like I'm sitting on the porch, like, okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do the best I can to ground myself, and then to also at the same time like exhale this energy out into the world, into the universe, right? To put a little bit more of that out there. So it's like be a little bit of a not transmuter, but since I'm feeling it, like let me put it out there because it's a lot for me to hold. And then this wave of nostalgia, it's just like, oof. But at the end of the day, we all got to make decisions and we all got to make choices. Sometimes we choose together. Sometimes we make opposing choices. Sometimes the choice that we choose at the same time is to pursue other people. I just hope that you don't do it out of fear and you don't do it out of the patterns that you used to be stuck in the past. And honestly, I guess I'll talk about this as well. Not gonna do it. LOL, JK. Honestly, I've been like wondering because astrology a lot of times is the study of the stars, but it's the study of the stars as related to the events that took place that really solidify those sort of energies. And if we're coming into a new space, if we're coming into a space where we do things in a way that we've never done it before, who's to say that those relationships remain the same? Who's to say that we don't tap into even higher octaves and even into even brighter sort of like spots of those energies, where the way that those interactions and aspects take place manifest in ways that are a lot higher than they used to be because we're in a different space, right? Like the solar system is continually moving through the universe. And who's to say that we aren't sort of in this space to kind of sort of experience aspects outside of our system in a different way than the way we've been experiencing them? Like bodies outside of bodies, right? I don't know. Who knows? Anyway, that's just something that I'm interested to see within the next, I was going to say few years, but within the next decade, or I guess within my lifetime. I'm interested to see if maybe we'll see like some conjunctions and some squares and just some aspects in general where it spelled disaster and doom and this in the past, but now because of like the different space that we're in, it can play out in a much higher way, right? Because sometimes disaster strikes, like storms and fires happen to give rise to new growth. But what if what is already growing is good? Like it's these tower moments, right? Usually a tower falls when there's something like not great. But what if we already have something great? There's not really a reason for the tower to fall. And so instead of the tower falling, we just get this sudden burst of inspiration to make things even better without things having to completely fall apart first. You know what I mean? Anyway, no problem. It has been 1 hour and 33 minutes. Oof, girl. Why is it always like an hour long? It is what it is. All right, I'm gonna catch y'all later. Have a good whatever whenever you see this, or if you're viewing this now. I hope you're having a lovely rest of your. I hope you're having a lovely time now, and you have continue to have a lovely time. I know that there are a lot of things kind of sort of happening and going on in the world, but I hope you can find a moment of peace and respite in the in between, right? All right, so I'm gonna catch y'all later. I'm gonna go find something to eat, I guess. I don't know, because I'm a people and people eat.